President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday chose a function meant to celebrate the achievements of 10,000 youth to berate their management credentials, suggesting they were so corrupt they needed the elderly to help them run state funds meant for them. And of course, a lot of uproar wondering why would he give an appointment. And actually, let's listen in to the president yesterday so we can actually hear him verbatim. We'll come back.
Ama mnasemaje jameni? Sini pesa ni yenu. Pesa ni yenu ya afya, pesa ni yenu ya culture, pesa ni yenu ya arts. Sasa mnataka tuende na tumeona vile watu wakipatiwa kazi kama hiyo vile wanaenda kufanya. Si afadhali tupatie huyo mzee achunge ndio iwarudie. Watu waniwache bana, mimi sitaki mambo mingi.
So many wondering, was that enough of a defense or justification for his choice of Awori, Honorable Kirwan?
Well, because I'm 30 years younger than Awori.
Wow, I mean, that already is telling, you know, and you consider yourself one of the old.
Yeah, I'm one of the old. But you see, experience does not mean inefficiency. What I know is that the president and his deputy, they climbed onto power through the platform of youth, being digital, although I doubt their digitality, and being suave in terms of operations. But I think the president is a very disappointed man because many of the people that he has appointed have let him down through the kind of scandals we are seeing. But it is not always true that all the youth are corrupt. There are many youth who still got some conscience, and therefore we need to give them a chance. But on the other hand, what they did, and allow me, Victoria, to say this, when we took over from the British in 1963, 1968 we formed the first Air Force, and the Air Force commander then we got from the British government. When Kenyatta passed on 1978, President Moi retained almost half of Kenyatta's cabinet for a certain period. Then through attrition and political machinations, they disappeared, and some remained to the end of his regime. Somebody like Nicholas Biwott and a few others. When Kibaki took over, he retained Sally Koskei up to June 17th, 2003. And even after that change, he brought somebody from the previous regime in Ambassador Mudaura, who remained with him for 10 years. Now, when Jubilee took over in 2013, it was like it was a revolution. Anything that was in Kibaki's government was removed, and they ended up with new people who are called that these are professionals. And they removed practically all politicians except Ngilu and Balala. And there is something that is wrong about Kenyans. Once you become a politician, it's like you lost all your documents and your brains. You have now become a funny guy who is surviving from street corners of Nairobi. Now, so my worry is that for every change, there must be some kind of change with continuity. So that I would have expected President Uhuru to retain about 6 of Kibaki's ministers for purposes of institutional memory. And that is where they went wrong. And now I think he's trying to trace back, and is a bit frustrated because those he trusted are betraying him. So I would understand his frustration, but he should not have said what he said yesterday, because it's like all the youth are corrupt, and therefore the old must come back to town.
And Honorable Wangari, you've seen the president make many public outbursts. If it's not against the CS, now it's to defend an appointment. What do you make of his comments yesterday?
I actually, have no issue for him to defend his appointee, because the Constitution in the Bill of Rights actually guarantees that you should not be discriminated against, either by race, by gender, or by age. So it would be okay to appoint. But the statement, the political message yesterday, and he was actually attending a graduation of 10,000 young men and women who have gone through a training by Kenya Commercial Bank to the Ajiri program, in terms of standing on their own. So the political message you send, despite the frustration, for me was not right, because those young men and women will wonder, so where are we headed anyway? Because the president himself has no faith in the youth. Because I actually believe he has made recent appointments, even in boards. I mean, I know one young lady, one boy who's appointed in the National Irrigation Board at the age of 25. So he has made appointments to the young people, which have not disappointed. But he also is disappointed, and you can read it in his voice. But I think the outburst was not necessary. You can defend the appointment without seeking to group together 60% of the population of this country, because it is under 35. When you say that, I mean, money is being stolen, because there are so many scandals that are not led by the youth. In the ministries, in the parastatals, that are not led by the youth, really. So if the youth fund, which for me was a youth-led organization, had an issue, it does not imply on all other organizations. So I don't think it was a fair comment to the young people, especially on a graduation ceremony of youth, 10,000 of them. But I can feel his frustration. And I hope that he also has the capacity in his own situation as the president, as we do in parliament, to root out corruption, whether from the DCI, from the DPP. If all of us do our role and perform it properly, we'll be able to slay the dragon of corruption. But we cannot put it on one bracket of youth or old. Corruption has nothing to do with age or gender or even lifestyle. I mean, it really has to be a personal value, conviction, and integrity in terms of personal relationships and how you handle public finances. And I say that because we've had youth who have done exemplary well in this country, and it would be very unfair to actually group them together and say they are all rogue because one person or two were rogue. But you feel the frustration of the president, and I hope that going forward, I know it's frustrating not to achieve what he wants to do within the time that he has, but I hope that even his advisors can be able to tone it down a bit, because I don't think it's sending the right message. I totally think as a leader, there are many things sometimes I want to say. I mean, even myself, I would say them in my house because I should not say them in public. I think we need to also get that, so that it also doesn't get to the point where you just make statements that end up becoming the news and you lose what was the news item. Because even now you have to really read to see there was a graduation of 10,000 young men and women in that place where he said what he said.
Being the main
because
news
the main news became what he said. Exactly. So really, off the cuff, we really must get a way of dealing with them so that we don't lose the gist of the functions he's attending.
And Honorable Kira, you know, aside from the issue of experience and institutional memory coming in with someone as seasoned as Mudi Awori heading up such a board, could be why him now? Oftentimes appointments like this are also politically motivated. Could the president be also sending a message through his appointment, in your view?
Well, I think Mudi Awori, he was our vice president, and I served in the same cabinet with him for the entire period of 5 years. He is somebody well organized, and I think also the president must be trying to show that all is gold, and is giving assurance to some of us who are being increasingly edged out by young people like Wangare here. So we still got hope that for the next 30 years, I still got a chance to serve this country on any capacity. But I don't think there is any political message, because he said it the first time in Western, when he was in Kakamega for the celebrations, that yes, I've been trying young people, but please, when I appoint some older people, don't start blaming me. Yeah. And I do not know, possibly he must have been enthused by the presence and the demeanor of Mudi Awori, and possibly he had Mudi Awori in mind when he was saying that in Western. I don't know, but it is something good. It's good to have a blend. In fact, for record purposes, if you are to go for the youngest cabinet, it is President Uhuru's father who had the youngest cabinet, despite advanced age of 74. His cabinet ministers were between 29 and about 30, about 38. And even President Moi, when he took over from him, when he was appointed vice president, it was 42 years. So it was much younger cabinet than the cabinet of Kibaki, President Moi himself, and even President Kenyatta. Despite the fact that they were saying they were youthful, but you realize some of their ministers were beyond 60. And many of them were in the 50s. So the average age of Kenyatta 1 was much younger, and that brought vibrancy and a lot of development. If you are to look at the economic growth from 63, you will see Kenyatta period, except during the problem of oil, was doing very well. It was almost, the graph was like that of Kibaki 10 years. But in between, where we were not blending the youth and the old, things have not been they have not been doing well.
Right.
Even the economic growth of Jubilee, with a lot of respect to the government of the day, you see there is no much growth because either of corruption and also lack of synergy. Yeah.
Interesting. So
there
let's
must
see
be a
if that's-
balance. I agree with Honorable Kirwa that I would say I'm closer to the youth bracket than I am to the Moody Awori bracket. But you really cannot be discriminated by age, really, because we have many other positions that the youth have taken in this country. I mean, the Vision 2030 itself was led by a young person, Mugo Kibati then. So it has a history, and the balance of the two, for men and women, it has to be gender balanced, it has to be age balanced for the country to move forward. Because you can't also like park the old somewhere and say we are not going to deal with the old now that we have young people. It won't work. So in terms of defending the appointment, I think the president had every right. But the how is the issue now. The comment on the youth having looted was
how
for
made
me.
the news,
yeah,
yes.
It made the news and it was not the right message to
Remember
pass.
the Malaysian case where they brought an old man of 94.
Yes.
The oldest president today,
That's
or the
right.
oldest leader in the world, is the president of Malaysia, who was the president in the past.
Yes.
He did a commendable job. The other day, Malaysians said, okay, let's try him again. Things don't seem to be working.
Right.
And I think that is where President Kenyatta is coming from.